What is up, everyone? Chris Geo here, coming to you from my backyard. Mrs. Geo is here, but she doesn't want to be on camera right now. Um, she is recovering from a procedure that she had. She got an injection into the SI joint, and all seems to be going well. So, she got a rhizotomy in the lower lumbar. Now the SI joint injection. I think they're going to do another rhizotomy on the SI joint, and then we should have some good twin time for a few months, and then maybe even going in there and surgically fixing it. But anyways, wanted to do a quick little video while I'm sitting back and hanging out, just talking about just life and everything that's going on right now. The format of these videos that we do in the backyard is kind of more laid back, chilled, cigar, drink, and I really like it because it pisses the new agers off. Because they're like, oh my god, you're drinking and smoking tobacco. I'm like, yeah, the fucking world is ending. Okay? The fucking world is ending, and I'm gonna have a drink and a smoke.
There's never a time.
Because I don't plan to be here much longer. So, I'm sure everybody heard today Biden said that everybody has to have mandatory vacations for federal workers and for hospitals as well. So that's just step one. Oklahoma immediately filed lawsuits. Texas also, Governor Abbott immediately filed and said, nope, we're not going to be doing this. He's restricted the mask mandates in Texas, and that's been going on for a while. But he did come in with something that I don't agree with, and that's the abortion bill that he passed. And I know this is controversial. I know it is. But it's something that I want to just voice my opinion on, because I want to try to provoke different types of thought. You don't have to be pro-abortion to be pro-choice. And the reason for that is because we're protecting the rights of the individual. And even though we don't agree with those rights, protecting those rights protects our own rights. And that's where I come from. And he passed a bill to where people can sue doctors who do abortions. Anybody can. So, the husband can, or the woman can if she regrets it later, all of that. So it's basically an anti-abortion bill that is non-enforceable, but it's enforceable by pretty much anybody, which creates a big problem. And Cherie brought up a really good point. She's been watching a show called The Handmaid's Tale, and there it's basically a theocracy, and it's immoral for all of that. And Cherise, you brought up a good point. What if Texas is just kind of a honeypot to get people there, then turned it into a Handmaid's Tale kind of theocracy?
Where you don't have any control over your reproductive health.
Yeah, you don't have control over your reproductive health. You don't have control over your body. You don't have control over any of that.
Right.
And no matter what argument and what emotional-based argument people put in front of me, I'm always going to stand for your rights and for my rights to not have anything forcefully injected into my body. And that means that I also have to stand for the rights of other people to do whatever they want with their body too. And I know there's a big argument, but I just wanted to put it on record. That's where Abbott kind of loses me, because I guess I'm more libertarian than anything else. I used to be an anarchist until about 2018. And if you go back to some of the videos here on Beyond the Veil, if you go back to January 20th, 2016. I did a video called The Trump Inauguration from an Anarchist Perspective. And the premise of the video is, at the end of the day, government is government. Government comes from two terms, gubernatio and mente, meaning to control the mind or to control the mind of the masses. So at the end of the day, government is government, and that's something that we need to evolve beyond as a human species. However, when I saw BLM and Antifa, the riots that were going on, all of that, it became abundantly clear that there is a large portion of the population, has nothing to do with race, has nothing to do with culture, has nothing to do with any of that, because BLM and Antifa were a very diverse group of people. So I just want to be clear on that. But they proved to me that people need government, and that we need government as a society. You and I don't need government. I don't need government interfering in my life. But they need somebody to keep them under control, because when you're burning buildings and you're attacking innocent people and you're doing all that and you don't know how to conduct yourself, somebody has to step in and govern. And what I loved about Trump is that he didn't really govern. He was more of a leader. You've already heard my whole spiel on Trump. we're moving into almost 2022 now, and the further we get away from January 20th, the less likelihood I see of the timeline flipping into the timeline that I felt would have been the path of least resistance, which is Trump 2021. So now we have to see things for what they are and move forward as far as that goes. So we have to see what's in front of us: mandatory vacations, vacation passports. You won't be able to work. You won't be able to get on an airplane. You won't be able to go to the store and buy things. You can order from Amazon. You can order from Walmart. You can do all that kind of stuff. But it's coming, and states are fighting back. And I predicted this. I predicted that there would be a civil war, but it wasn't going to be a civil war that was fought in the streets. It was a civil war that was going to be fought from the states. And some of the states are fighting back. And I noticed that Biden hasn't really met with very many world leaders. And I suspect the reason for that is because most world leaders don't recognize him as a duly elected president. They have no respect for him whatsoever. So we saw a very big shift and a very big change in the zeitgeist. And we, at least the way I feel, we're the laughing stock of the fucking world right now. But we don't have it as bad as some countries have it, like Afghanistan. Not Afghanistan, Australia. Australia has it really, really, really bad right now. Total lockdown, complete tyranny. It's, I have two hypotheses as to what's going on in Australia right now. Please let me know in the comments and in the chat room what you guys think. First hypothesis is that Australia has been taken over by the CCP. So they're just implementing CCP takeover methods there, which is complete lockdown, and getting people accustomed to the CCP style control.
Social
and
credit scores.
Social credit scores, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
Curfews, all of that. And
being judged by each and every one of your actions, no matter how trivial it may seem, whether it's, you know, getting your taxi, getting to your taxi on time for your driver, or, you know, being nice at the checkout line. I mean, just anything and everything goes on your social credit score in China, and that's all thrown into your credit score along with your social credit score. So it doesn't matter if you have the best credit in the world. If you are not the kind of person they want as their slave, then they will make your life as difficult as possible.
I can see why Australia would be a target of the CCP, because many Chinese spies have defected and have gone over to Australia.
Yeah.
Australia has given them safe harbor. And there was an 2020 Australia broadcast that came out. I've mentioned this several times before. And it was about a spy that defected, and he was in Taiwan. And what he would do is he would go around and join pro-Taiwan groups, find out things about their leaders, try to steer the narrative in different directions. He would then try to steer people from that side over to the side of the pro-CCP. He would go on social media. They would have a gang of trolls that had multiple accounts. They would try to sway the comments in one direction or another. They had enough people to where they can get Facebook posts removed, they can get YouTube channels deleted, you know, they can do all that, bring in major censorship, make it look like there's a whole group of people that are pushing for one idea, when in actual fact there's very few people, and the majority of the people are pushing for the other idea. And when he came out and spoke about this, I think that the documentary was released in 2019, which means that the work that he was doing, from what I gather, was around the 2014, 2015, 2016. And then they had to take the time to do the interviews. He had to get safe harbor from Australia. He had to, you know, they had to do the whole production and everything like that, which would lead to a date of 2019 being released. And he basically laid out the entire playbook of what happened in 2020 in the United States and all over the world. So I think that was a very important documentary to watch, or 2020 report. But I can see why Australia would be targeted. It's so close to China as well. So that's one hypothesis. Another hypothesis is a little more esoteric and a little more out there. But we know that in the cards, as Carol Rosen has said, is a planned, staged alien invasion. And what a perfect place to do something like that than Afghanistan, Iraq, which connects directly to Sumar. They have that place completely and totally under control. Or a place like Australia, where Australia is as large as the United States, but it has a population of about 20 million people. So I said something on a previous show about, you know, Australia being a small island. I didn't mean it to be a small island. I meant it to be an isolated island with a small population. But they have plenty of area there to where they can do something like a staged alien invasion, have it come up over Iraq, Afghanistan, Australia, places like that. They have enough land and distance to where they can project whatever they want to project. They can get a few people out there getting cell phone video of the event, but you can't get so close to it to where you actually see it as a hologram. So it works, in my opinion, in a perfect way, because you want to have people on YouTube and places like in social media taking cell phone videos of whatever holograms are in the sky, but you don't want them close enough to get good photos that would reveal the holographic nature of the holograms. And so if they move towards a staged alien invasion, which to me it makes sense, especially with this whole, you know, zombie virus situation, the preparations that they're making, the lockdowns, you know, all of that, this almost feels like a test run for an event like that to happen. And that's when everything is completely under control, total lockdown, total everything like that. And I've even gone so far as to speculate that what's in the vacations is some kind of nanobot technology that will change. And we know for a fact that it changes the DNA. We know for a fact that it changes the RNA. But it can change the perception of the mind and the perception of the brain as well too. So you can't trust your senses anymore. So something that you see, a normal person would see as holographic, while another person would see a little bit of a skewed perspective because it can manipulate the DNA, it can manipulate the brain, it can manipulate the body as a whole. And you get enough of the population, you know, infected with this kind of technology, then you know, it becomes the exact same situation that it was in 2020 with the whole zombie virus situation. I mean, in February of 2020, we said this thing is not what they're telling us it is. It sounds like a flu. It sounds like something like that. We said it came out of the Wuhan lab. We said Fauci was funding it. We said that the masks don't work. We said that the vacation is going to be an RNA-based vacation. All debunked by the fact checkers, all of them, February, March, April, May. And as time progressed, each one of these talking points started to fall apart, and they had to start to admit that, yes, this thing did come from Wuhan. That was the first admission, because you can only cover up the truth for so long until it comes out. And then now they found documentation showing that Fauci was directly involved in gain-of-function research. Gain-of-function research, for anybody that's not familiar with the term, it's when you take a virus and you manipulate it and try to make it more transmissible to humans, usually the case being for bioweapon research, even though that goes against the Geneva Convention. However, the whole idea of it coming from a wet market and from a bat and a wet market right next to Wuhan and all that, it didn't add up at all. And now even Biden is having, or his administration is having to investigate it because the evidence is just so fucking blatant. And the documents have come out that Fauci was directly involved with it. The documents also came out that Fauci in 2014 at Wuhan was part of a project that specifically used bats. Most of them used humanized mice. So they'll genetically modify the mice to use them as test subjects to make them more human-like, at least their DNA structure, so they can test these viruses on. But they specifically found the document showing that they were using coronaviruses with bats in Wuhan in 2014, and the project was to try to take a bat coronavirus and make it more transmissible to humans. Now, it's important to understand coronaviruses, there's thousands of them. They've been around forever. They were first discovered and coined in the 1940s the common cold is a coronavirus. The flu is a coronavirus. SARS is a coronavirus. This is SARS-CoV-2, so it's a specific type of coronavirus. We just went to the vet the other day, and one of my cats has coronavirus. And I said, this isn't COVID, right? And she goes, no, it's not. And I said, okay, good, because there's thousands of strains of coronaviruses, but there's coronaviruses that animals can carry and all that. It's like a common cold or flu or, something of that nature. But their purpose was to take something common and to change it. Now, we also said at the very beginning of this that they were splicing it with HIV spike proteins. That's coming out now too. They were using HIV spike proteins. So the creator of the RNA technology, I don't remember his name, but he said, do not use this technology. This technology is not supposed to be used. This was an experimental technology. Dr. Bosch was talking about how it changes all the non-specific antibodies to specific antibodies. So it leaves the immune system without any kind of defense.
Yeah.
And there's some people that are saying that anybody who's gotten the vacation, who's taken the vacation, is going to be dead within 6 months to 5 years. It's just a ticking time bomb of, a mass culling of the herd that we're watching right now. And the documents are all coming out, even coming out in mainstream media. What we see in mainstream media is the tip of the iceberg. What's actually there is way below. Oh, King's Calcy, thank you so much for the loving donation. I bought one Eye of Life and you sent me 2. I thought I'd pay for the difference. Aww. Thank you very much.
That's really
sweet. Who was it? Somebody just recently, I don't remember who it was. I'm gonna have to go check the messages though. But somebody sent me and asked me, hey, can you send me the coupon code? I don't have very much money, but I really need to get some of this stuff for my dog, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're gonna take this donation and we're gonna send them a free bottle on behalf of you. So what was the name again? Let's make a note of the name.
Calcy.
Okay, King Calcy. We're gonna say that bottle that's going to them for free. We're gonna send them a couple bottles for free. Is coming from you. Thank you. So we're just making the energy go round and round and round and round. You guys and gals rock. Thank you. So the Mu variant. There is something going on with the Mu variant, and it's funny because I went to go get some cigars before I started this. I was just going to do a live stream, but I was like, I haven't had a cigar in forever. I walk in, and I see the managers and all the people working there all huddled around, and they're laughing, and I hear the word deep state. And I was like, what are you guys talking about, if you don't mind me asking? And somebody had left this little notice here. And I'll get into this here in just a second. But it's funny how it happened because it gave me something to talk about. And I was like, do you mind if I take this with me? I got a little podcast that I do, and we do 2 different types of shows. One where we're drinking Modelo and smoking cigars, and one where we're actually in the studio. And they thought this was all really, really, really kooky. And I'll get into this here in a second, but I'll let you read it real quick because you haven't even seen it.
Oh, wow, okay.
But people are circulating these. But when it comes to the Mu variant, number one, it's called the Mu variant, which sounds like cow, cattle.
Mm-hmm.
However, I did make a post on Facebook, and I said, this Mu variant seems to be the real deal. And the reason that I'm saying that is because there's too many people who are in the hospital that I know directly. One of our TFR hosts, Rob Skiba, is in the hospital in ICU. My cousin, who has always been on our side, she has not taken a vacation in a long time. She is perfectly healthy, 58 years old, non-smoker, no pre-existing conditions, nothing like that. She's in the hospital and she's on IV antivirals. So I haven't even checked on her. I sent her a text message, as a matter of fact. I'm using my phone for this, but I sent her a text message and I haven't heard back from her. So I don't even know if she's still with us. I hope that she is. But she was speaking to me in Greek, and she said, "Hey Chris, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. They want me to take this pharmaco, in Greek is called pharmako because it comes from pharmakia. And I don't want to take it. And even the vacation, she's like, they want me to take a vacation, and I don't want to take it. I don't know what to do. You're tuned into this, and I said, cause I don't know what to tell you at this point. You do whatever your heart is telling you to do. But I know one thing for sure, these vacations, I don't think are doing anything positive for anybody. And as a matter of fact, I think it's creating the perfect environment for something like the moose strain, which I don't even think is uh, related to SARS-CoV-2. I think it's something completely, totally different. And I'm wondering if the vacation was in order to kill the immune system, then release the moose strain, which then actually causes the damage that they're looking for. But I was saying that all these conspiracy theories that were debunked by the fact checkers in 2020 about the RNA, about the origin of it, about Fauci's links to it, about the passports, about the inability to work, about the masks and their effectiveness. You go to Fauci's emails and it says that if it's a 0.01% is considered a flu season. That's the mortality rate, 0.01%. 0.02% is would be considered a heavy flu season. 0.03% to 0.05%, or I'm sorry, 0.03% to 0.1% would be considered a light pandemic. 0.1% mortality rate would be considered a full-blown pandemic. There was no reason for the lockdowns. There was no reason for the masks. There was no reason for any of this, according to Fauci's own internal emails. And when I get into it with people on Facebook and they argue with me, I'm like, hey, look, I'm trusting the experts on this, okay? You claim that Fauci is an expert? Okay, fine. I trust Fauci. What he says in private, not what he says in public. I also trust experts like Dr. Bosch, who is the head virologist for like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I think he was also Harvard. I think he was also WHO for a while. He is Mr. Virologist. He's the top virologist. So I'm trusting the experts on this over the propaganda that you guys are spewing on Facebook.
Thank you,
Tara, thank you very much for the love. Thank you very much. And they can't argue with that. They can't argue with that because it's like, well, I'm trusting the experts here. But anyways, they just resort to name calling and all of that. My point is, though, that everything we've been saying has come out to be true. And so it was a massive, massive, massive cover-up. And then, of course, you have the whole situation in the 80s with the AZT, which was the treatments for AIDS. And Fauci was the one that was pushing AZT, even though AZT was causing adverse effects and deaths, more so than HIV and AIDS itself. So, and it had a higher mortality rate, but Fauci was front line to do this. So we're taking something now and we are splicing HIV protein spikes with a coronavirus. And it's the exact same people who have been working on this since the 1980s. I got another donation from somebody. It fell off the screen.
Awakening to Truth.
Awakening to Truth. Thank you very much. Was there a comment?
I said, love your show with 2 hearts.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll do a show a little bit later, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
This is just more kind of like a hangout.
Yeah.
But thank you. And I don't know how long I can keep this on YouTube for, because I've talked a lot. I've said a lot of things that violate the terms and conditions here. And I haven't been really too, I haven't really been speaking in the typical code that I'd like to speak in. However, we're in a lot of trouble, and we're getting to very vital points in time right now where we're going to have to make a very real choice. What do we want to do? I can tell you this, though. A lot of these places that are requiring, at least for the time being, I mean, we can only take it one step at a time, but we're going to EDC, for example. And EDC, they're requiring a negative test or proof of vacation. And they said that a picture on your phone of your vacation card is adequate. So a picture on my phone of my vacation card is not difficult to do whatsoever. So, there's ways around it to navigate through all this bullshit here for the time being. But as we said in the very beginning, it's not just a mask, it's so much more than just a mask. And now we're at this point when nobody can say it's just a mask anymore. We've transcended into a whole other realm here. And I'll get into some esoteric stuff here in a second. Can I ask you a favor?
Yeah.
Can you grab me one more?
Yeah.
I have some limes right there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, so all that being said, I've been getting messages from some of our BTV tribe saying, hey, I'm. They want me to go back to work. I've been working at home, but they also expect me to take a vacation. I got another one from another friend who she's been listening to the show for a long, long, long time, and she's a nurse. And we went a little bit back and forth on this. When this whole thing happened, there were actually two nurses who've been listening to us for a while, and they're real people. I've spoken to them, and they've been very loving in the past and everything like that. The first nurse was running around and pulling her hair out because she thought this was going to be a huge thing that was going to kill like 3 million people and all this. And this is what they were saying at the very beginning. It was going to kill like 3 million plus people, and just keep on spreading, like, just mass chaos. And I'm like, no, 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 it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And she kind of chilled out a little bit as well. But this other one at first was telling me how dangerous this whole situation is. And she worked ICU, she worked all of that. And at the times when we were pointing out all the empty hospitals, she was writing me and saying, you guys really don't know what you're talking about, et cetera, et cetera. I'm working at the ICUs. I see patients coming in, et cetera, et cetera. And it's stuff that I have to consider. But I also have to consider the broad picture too. Just because one hospital may be busy, if they report on my neighborhood hospital and say that it's full, and I go over there on the same day of the report and it's empty, I've got to also consider that information as well. And just like New York as well, the epicenter of all this, people were going there on the day when they were saying, this is just horrible, it's overwhelmed, it's overflowing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was empty. But she's quitting on the 12th of September. And she has been a nurse for many, many, many years. And the reason she's quitting is because of these mandatory vacations. And she was a frontline worker throughout all this. And nurses and doctors, and my doctor, who was this old Native American guy, he retired just out of the blue for no reason. And I've noticed nothing but students every time I go in there. I have to go in there once a month because of this car accident bullshit. But I'm noticing nothing but students there, and more and more people being trained, and it's never the same staff anymore. It's a revolving staff, and they've always got students with them, always training them. And I speculate that my doctor retired, because he retired. He didn't go practice somewhere else. He retired. The reason he retired is for ethical reasons. He's been on hydroxychloroquine since the 1980s for malaria. And so when I brought all this up, he goes, this is nothing but a cousin of SARS. That's all it is. It's a cousin of SARS. And I was like, well, when it comes down to it, do you think you can write me an exemption for, the vacation? And he goes, well, you don't have to take one. And I was like, I know. And I'm like, but I'd like an exemption. I said, they're going to make it pretty soon to where you can't go into stores, you can't get on an airplane, you can't do this, you can't do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he goes, well, yeah, that is true, but there's no requirement for you to get one. And then he quit shortly after that, about a month later, 2 months later. And I think it was because he no longer wanted anything to do with the medical field, because he's an old Native American guy, and he's a healer. He's not, a propagandist. He's not going to do that. So I can only speculate as to why he quit, but I can tell you why this nurse that I'm talking about is quitting, and that's because of the mandatory vacation. During conversation when we were talking, I brought up this idea that I've learned from a lot of different business owners, and I wonder if the same idea is being used in the medical industrial complex right now. The idea is that an employer would rather hire a guy with no experience, train him or her exactly the way that they want it done at their company, rather than hiring somebody with 20, 30 years experience. Because people that have 20, 30 years experience, they want to do things their way. They don't want to do it the way the company wants it done. And when I was in the carpet cleaning industry, I found that to be the case too. The guys that I would hire that had all the experience, etc., they were doing things their way. And the guys that I would hire that had no experience, I would train them exactly the way I wanted them. I wanted the job done, representing my company. So I'm wondering if what we're seeing right now is the same type of mentality in the medical industrial complex. Get rid of all the people who are not going to go along with the agenda, and also bring in new people who don't have experience. And the reason for that is because you can train them to do it exactly the way that you want them to do. You can train them to think exactly the way you want them to think. And a lot of these people that have worked through 2020 and saw the lies up front from the mainstream media, what's been reported, and what they experienced personally in their hospitals or at their doctor's offices or anything like that, they know. So they're going to be taking all that knowledge and experience into 2021 and 2022. And that's one of the reasons why they want to get rid of all these people. It's just like, you comply or you don't have a job anymore. And it's more than just actually having the vacation itself, but rather it's, if you're going to comply, then you're going to do what we say from here on out. So you're one of those that's going to do what we say and not think ethically, not think about what you're doing. And if you're not going to comply, then we're going to replace you with somebody that doesn't have the experience, so we can train them or brainwash them in any way that we want. So I think that's what's going on right now. And we're watching it happen in the medical industry, which is a scary thing. So we're gonna have to figure out what to do. There's a positive side to this, though, and I'm gonna get to the positive side here in a second, but I don't know how much hope I have for the current situation. And it's not that I'm being nihilistic or anything like that, it's just I'm being real. And when we saw the mask thing happened, how many people went along with that? How many people shut down? How many people didn't question it? In the face of all of the evidence and facts and just simple logic behind putting a dirty piece of cloth over your face and wearing that for 8 hours a day, and how that creates situations. I saw a video on BitChute, and a guy, he works in small, tight spaces. He's an electrician or something like that, and he has a meter. And whenever he has to go crawl into an attic or he has to crawl into one of those tight spaces to go do his job, he has a little device that he uses to test the air. And he tests the oxygen, he tests the carbon, he tests, anything that's in the air. And as soon as that thing starts to beep, it's like the canary in the coal mine, but it's like an electric version of it. So as soon as it starts to beep, it means get the fuck out of wherever you are because you're breathing in toxic air. He put his face diaper on and put his little device inside of his face diaper, and the thing started going off over and over and over again as he was wearing it. To me, it makes perfect sense. If you're going to keep that over your mouth and constantly breathe that over and over and over again, what are you doing? You're exhaling carbon and breathing in oxygen, but you're exhaling the same thing and it's being recycled over and over and over again, creating a toxic environment that you're breathing in. So it's just like being in a room with contaminated air. But people have been walking around with all this, and then, there's also the training involved behind it too. Surgeons are trained to never ever touch their face diapers, and if they do in school, they'll smack each other. Literally, they'll give each other a nice little punch on the shoulder or whatever, because it's imperative to not touch it, and it's imperative to take it off and replace it every couple of hours when you're working in a medical field. People walking around aren't doing that, but this is a conversation for 2020. But my point is that despite all that logic, just basic critical thinking, in my opinion. I mean, it's 2 plus 2. It's obvious. People went along with it. So they went along with it for convenience. So you can go to stores, so you can do this, so you can do that, et cetera, with this whole carrot dangling in front of the horse. Oh, it's just going to be 14 days. Oh, it's just going to be until we can flatten the curve. Oh, it's just until we can get the cases down. Oh, it's just until we can develop a vacation. It's just until we can get a portion of the population vacated. Vacated is a perfect word. It's just until you get your second one. Oh, now you're going to need to take one every 2 weeks. And it's on and on and on and on with this carrot tangling in front of the horse. So when it comes to, we had the power to fight back when it came to the face diapers. And some people tried. There were some businesses out there that didn't want to go along with it, and they got fined over and over and over and over again. But the majority of people went along with it. And so I don't really have much faith. You can have Oklahoma do a lawsuit. You can have Texas do a lawsuit. You can have all of that. But we're going to have to contend with the mandate of this vacation, or the mandatory nature of this vacation. And the problem is, these people are lawless. So we can't say, well, the law says, or the Constitution says, or this and that, because they don't give a fuck. That's the thing, they don't give a fuck. And the thing is, the sheeple out there, the NPCs, all of them going along with it, they're genuinely scared. And so they create an environment that we also have to live in, so we can duck and dodge and move left and right and do everything like that for a certain period of time. But it's going to get to a point to where we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do, So I think it's good that we start formulating a plan now. So back to this. I walk into the liquor cigar store to pick up a couple of cigars, and they're all huddled around and they're reading this here. And I hear the word deep state, and I'm like, oh, what are you guys reading? And they handed me this, and they were like, you can take it if you want. And I was like, cool. And I asked them, what do you guys think about this? And I'm like, oh, this is crazy, this is stupid, this is ridiculous, this is conspiracy theories, etc., etc. So I'm going to go ahead and read to you what it says. And people are circulating this around. It's beautiful. This was great. The goals of the zombie virus: contact tracing, track the exact location of everyone in real time to prevent any attempt to develop a revolution against the communist state. CCP takeover. Everything we've been talking about. Forced vacations. You will not be able to travel, buy, or sell without a passport. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's actually happening right now. It's actually happening right now. Destruction of small businesses. Huge corporations like Walmart and Amazon will be the only businesses to survive. No more freedom of choice. That's how communism works. Communism is basically corporatism. It means that all the corporations are owned by the government. And man, we had this exact same conversation in 2020. Exact same. It's sitting in the exact same place in 2020. It means that all the businesses are owned by the government. The way they do this, the way they're going to bring this in, is they're going to make it to where only the large corporations can survive. They want to kill all the small businesses. And they're doing so by raising the price of gasoline, by raising the price of living, unemployment, the mandatory vacations, all of that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then what happens is these companies like Walmart and Amazon, who made billions of dollars in 2020, while the rest of the businesses couldn't have customers come to their shop because of the mandates, they get supplements by the government. And then when they get those supplements from the government, they get more and more and more and more until as we saw with the auto industry. I don't remember the name of the company. Which company was bought by the government in 2010? It was some car company.
Oh, it's GM.
GM, General
General
Motors.
Motors.
I will never buy General Motors because it's made by the U.S. government. But it's just like GM, the GM takeover. You know, that's exactly what they're doing with the WalMarts and the Amazons, while at the same time killing off all of the small businesses. Now, this is a plan that is going to go on for years. We're just at the very beginning of this plan, but this is how this rolls in. Digital global currency. Government will be able to track everything that you buy, and steal your money or cancel your account. Well, remember in 2020, everybody was saying, oh, I'm sorry, we can't accept cash right now. Oh, the Federal Reserve has a shortage in coins. Some places won't take cash because of COVID risks, and they don't want to pass the cash. And then, we're moving towards all completely and totally digital. And the Real ID is something that Sheree and I have been talking about since 2005?
Yeah, 2006,
2005, 2006.
Yep.
And it took them 15 years to implement the Real ID. But most of you out there have a Real ID already. You may not realize it, but you have a Real ID. I don't have a Real ID. Sheree has a Real ID. The Real ID has all of your documentation, Social Security, birth certificate, things like that. Now, what's happened with 2020 is that they've created a pretext to link up all of your medical records into your Real ID, and it's a little chip that's on your driver's license. And so now they can just scan it and say, oh, okay, well, you have your vacation, no problem. The vacation cards themselves are just placeholders. Just like the masks were placeholders for the vacation cards are placeholders for the digital card, for lack of a better term, and proof of that. And that's what the whole push for free healthcare was too. Socialized healthcare means that you have to do everything that they say, otherwise they cut off your benefits. And you don't get that lung, or you don't get that heart, or you don't get that broken leg fixed, or you don't do anything like that. And if you do have a situation where you have to go to the doctor, then they say, oh, we see you're not up to date with this, and this, so we're going to go ahead and stick you with this, and this. And they've been developing systems to where even inside of pills, they can put a little nanobot microchip inside of little pills, and it tells the doctors if you've been taking your pills on time. It tells them when you've been taking them. So all this technology has already been created. And then we came across that Google thing. People are saying it's patent 666, but in actual fact, it's not patent 666. It's patent like 260060006AI or A1. And it was cryptocurrency and body tracing technology, basically an implantable microchip that stores currency and tracks your movements. Google's already developed this. We talked about this in that show that we did where we were calling creepy numbers. 1-800-666-QBIT. If you haven't seen that show, check it out. And a qubit is a measurement. It's like a bit in computers, but a qubit is a quantum bit for quantum computers. So this is all connected to quantum computer technology and implantable microchips for exactly what these people are talking about on these little cards here. Digital currency, tracking everybody, tracking everything you buy, tracking everything you sell, tracking everywhere you go. And if they don't like what you're saying or doing, they just turn off your chip. Just like in China. In China, they have the social crediting network. If your social credit score isn't good, you can't get a job, you can't eat at certain restaurants, you can't live in certain neighborhoods, you can't do anything. And your social credit score is directly affected too by what you're posting on social media. So it's how you interact out in public. It's what you post. Are you posting anti-establishment rhetoric? Are you posting controversial rhetoric? Are you posting extremist content? And we know how far those terms can be stretched to misinformation, disinformation. That's the biggest one right now. Misinformation and disinformation means anything that goes against the official narrative, regardless of whether it's true or not. Because I gave you all those examples. The Wuhan leak, the 2014 coronavirus bat connection, Fauci's connections to everything, all that. That's all true. It's true. It's admitted truth now. But it violated the terms and conditions while they were trying to control the narrative. So, on the back of it, use Yandex or DuckDuckGo, avoid Google and YouTube censorship. DuckDuckGo was bought out by Google, so they got this wrong on this piece of paper here. CDC publishes concentration camp protocol. Yeah. Use Yandex or DuckDuckGo, avoid Google, and Google this. CDC publishes concentration camp protocol. HR 645 is something that I referenced in one of my songs, Run This Town. And this was from back in like 2008, 2009. And HR 645 authorizes the use of FEMA camps, concentration camps. I've been making a joke too lately, just kind of an internal joke. All this new age meditation stuff, clear your mind, focus your mind, all that stuff. It's also, you can concentrate better. Because if you don't concentrate better, they're going to help you concentrate better, and they're going to send you to concentration camp. But anyways, the next one on the list is for political dissidents, search for the Great Reset. And that is not the reset that we're talking about here, that we did in March of 2018. The Great Reset is their hijacking of what we've done. And their attempt to hijack what we initiated in May of 2018. And one of the reasons that, that I feel the way I do is because, I feel a sense of duty. It's the best way I can describe it. A sense of duty to see this thing all the way through and make sure that this goes in the right direction and that they're not allowed to hijack it. And I think a lot of the disdain for the people who are fighting against us in 2020 comes from that, because it's a sense of duty on a soul level. It's not a sense of duty on a 3D level. And there's nothing worse, in my opinion, but it happens all the time, than people who smile to your face and then stab you in the back. And we were surrounded by those people in 2020. But you know what, as I said in a previous video, all those people became irrelevant. Some of them just even up and left. Some of them were genuine operatives that on January 20th, this one person in particular, who I know for a fact is an operative, posted, "Well, my work is done, see you guys later." No, haven't heard from them since. Completely gone.
Not a word.
And they were part of the Blue Avian Gaia TV bullshit. But it's funny because they were controlled opposition. They would pretend to speak out against it until someone actually spoke out against it in a way to where it wasn't controlled. Then they would start attacking them. These people started attacking us once we started talking about Operation Bluebird, which is a mind control operation. And once we revealed that George Cavassalas told me in private, because he said it in public, that the whole Blue Avian thing was just a big hoax before the Blue Avian thing came out, and that he was approached to be the ambassador of the Blue Avians. And all the talking points of the Blue Avians, which echoed Ben Fulford, and also echoed Q too, which is mass arrests, trust the plan, we got your back, we're coming down to save you, all this stuff, all that stuff. When we put out that video, oh shit, they just came out of the woodworks, and like all these people that we thought were friends were just like stabbing us in the back and just really fucking going hard at it. And then also when we were pushing the Trump 2021 timeline, They were acting like they were Trump supporters, but in actual fact they weren't. They were deep state puppets or useful idiots at the very least. I don't know. But I have a lot of disdain for the New Age movement and a lot of disdain for those kind of people. Um, I don't want to get too much into that, but let me just say this. I feel right now like I am in the best position that I've ever been in my life. And the reason for that is because I don't give a fuck. And I'm just going to speak the truth the way it is, and I don't care what anybody else thinks. And I've never truly had that place. I've never truly been in that place, because I've always been like, oh, we have to have this guest on the show, and we have to have this guest on the show, and I don't want to offend this person, I don't want to offend that person, etc., etc., etc. I'd rather just, sit back and just like karma, take care of it, etc., etc. And I did. But I'm in a place now where I don't give a fuck. And I feel empowered by being in a place where I don't give a fuck. So please don't think that I'm bashing on the New Age. It's just there's a lot of pent up stuff that I bit my tongue on just for the sake of professionalism. But now, hindsight 2020, I know for a fucking fact those motherfuckers are fucking operatives. Anyways, back to this. Bev Harris, black box voting is proof. All, there's a word here that I'm trying to figure out what to use instead. Erections. Is that a good word?
Yeah, if you're.
I think we can think of a better word.
If you're like an Asian.
All erections are rigged with electronic Viagra machines. There we go.
There you
All
go.
erections are rigged with electronic Viagra machines.
That's good.
Every Republican and Democrat is selected at the primary level. This is why nothing ever changes. And then there are several people who are listed here. And several things to Google, like Epstein's accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell's arrest. War by Deception by Ryan Dawson. Yeah. So this was circulating, and I walk in, and they're all standing around laughing. They're like, that sounds like some deep state shit. And I was like, ooh, my ears perked up. So I walked in, and I asked them about it. Hey, can you take this?
Yeah.
Thank you. I asked them about it, and I said, what do you guys think about this? And they said, oh, that's crazy. That's this and that, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's funny, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, huh, this is interesting. But I was thinking to myself, how can you guys not see this? How can you not see this? And I was wearing my mask because, that's what you got to do. So this is my mask. I think you can tell by my mask my political stance and my views on how I view the whole situation. Because this works just as well as any other one, and it's above my nose too.
Yep.
And they can't argue with this. Nobody can argue with this. And it pisses them off, and I can tell. But the lady that checked me out, I said, what do you think about all that? She's like, oh, I think it's silly. And she goes, I have worn my mask all the time. And even when I go to restaurants, I don't take it off until just about when I'm ready to eat. And she was literally standing 6 feet away from me as she was checking me out. And I was like, yeah, I wear my mask all the time too. And I've got this mask on. And I'm like, yeah, I wear mine all the time too.
That's great.
I said, yeah, you got to keep safe for sure. And I know what she was thinking. She had this big cloth mask that was about this thick, like this. And she was afraid of me, genuinely afraid of me, as though I was infected. And we started talking, and I'm like, have you been sick? And she's like, no, I haven't. And I'm like, so why are you so afraid? And she's like, well, it's because I always keep my mask on, and my mask keeps me safe. And I was like, oh, really? I was like, I've always worn this one, for the whole time. I haven't gotten sick at all. But that's really strange how that happens, huh? But just to watch that and how they were all standing around, like all of them, all the employees and the manager were all standing around reading that and laughing about
It's a
it.
cult mentality.
Cult mentality,
It's gotta
exactly.
be. It's gotta be a cult mentality where everyone's brainwashed, and if you're not brainwashed along with everybody else, then you're ostracized for not being part of the group.
Well, that's what they're trying to do. See, they're making it virtuous to be submissive. And it's funny because Amir had just posted something, and he said, if you've got a Rolex and you've got to check it to see when your lunch hour's over, that's not really a good flex.
Yep.
Meaning, like, you're kind of a slave.
You're a
If
slave.
You've got a Rolex, but you got to check it and make sure, your
Make
lunch.
sure you get back on
You get
time.
back before your lunch hour's over.
Yep.
And I responded and I said something effective. I've always been like that. I got a song called Sheep's Eyes, and Seeing Through Sheep's Eyes. And if I go back to sleep, I'd hang myself with my tie. And here we go, here's some truth. Take it to the grave. The tie around your neck is a leash for a slave. I gave and I gave. I tried to save the world. I was met with grown men laughing like little girls. But now they're scared on their knees. But I already said it. Bin Laden, CIA, but they quickly forget it. And they never believe it. Even though they see it. You think September was bad? Shit, wait till they repeat it.
Panic on the streets.
Panic in the streets from a
global.
global recession.
Yep.
In and out the herd with suicide and depression.
And I find it.
That's from Mad World, actually.
Yeah.
Not Sheep's Eyes.
Well, the first one was from Sheep's Eyes. The second one was
yeah,
from
the
Mad
first
World.
one. If I go back to sleep, I hang myself with my time.
Yeah.
And it's funny how it's become virtuous. And see, it's something that I've seen the the virtuousness of being a slave.
Yeah.
At the tie, and no offense to anybody that has to wear a tie. Some people have to wear a tie.
Yeah, some people have to.
But I've always seen a tie as a leash for a slave. And
Yeah.
I even wrote about. I mean, it's not like I'm just saying this now. Go back to my album from 2009,
Right.
and I sang it back then too. The watch, you've seen me. I don't wear a watch. I wore a watch for a brief period of time,
Yeah.
and that was only because of the look, and it was actually broken.
Yeah, it was a broken
It was
watch.
it was still.
It was never used.
And Cherie's like, I want to buy you a watch, and I'm like, no, I don't want a watch, because I'm timeless.
Yep.
I don't need to be bound by time. But these were all small little things that we were noticing about the, how people they see their submission and slavery as a virtue.
Right.
People. When I had a Facebook page, official Chris Geo, and they pulled that page, but that page would get hundreds of thousands of views on some videos. And then USA Today attacked me, did that hit piece, and then Facebook wound up pulling the whole page with no violations, nothing like that at all, period. But I had a very, very, very large, diverse audience there. And instead of saying anything about the things that I was saying, people would rather say, get a haircut. I heard get a haircut so many times. Get a haircut. And why are you wearing black fingernails?
Right.
It was like the two things people honed in on,
Right.
who didn't have an argument for anything that I was saying.
Right.
But they get a haircut part. And again, no offense to anybody out there that doesn't have long hair. But when you look throughout history, the slaves were always shaved.
Yep.
And they were made to wear sackcloth, and they were made to wear a rope around their necks. The freemen always had the long hair. In Greece, the long hair was considered the crown. In Native American culture, it's considered the antennas, or your connection to spirits.
Right.
So these guys walk around, and I remember I was working at this place, and there was a guy who was wanting to be VP, and he would come in and he would wear a suit and tie, shaved head, all that stuff, and I'd meet the CEOs of other companies, long hair or shaved head with tattoos, piercings in their faces, arm tattoos, literally everything like that. But the guys working themselves up the ladder were the clean-cut, tie-wearing, suit-wearing guys and all that, and no judgment or anything whatsoever. But I've always seen it as a sign of submission, but it's been turned around into like a virtue, where it's like it's not a rope made out of hemp or whatever else they make rope out of. Now it's a rope made out of silk. So it was virtuous to be submissive. Now it's become completely and totally apparent, though. It's not something that you just have to see between the lines. It's not something that you have to look deep on. But rather, now it's become a point to where submission is not only virtuous, but is grounds for attacking your fellow human being. It's grounds for attacking those who want to live free and those who can see beyond the veil. And beyond, I mean, not even the etheric, esoteric veil, but beyond the veil of control that's being implemented. We understood what the masks were about from the very beginning. You understood what the masks were about from the very beginning. All these other sheep out there felt it virtuous to not only go along with their own enslavement, but attack those who were defending not only themselves, but defending them too. And it's amazing how we've just flipped all of a sudden. I mean, I guess we haven't really flipped because it's always been like that, but what it comes down to is now it's so in your face. It's like, it's complete and total apocalypse. Apocalypse means the great revealing, the removing of the veil. And the veil is removed and people can see perfectly clear, but at the same time they're just like, I like it. I like it. I was talking about the Yahweh virus in one video, and a comment that I got was, I would rather be a slave to Jesus than to be free to sin. That was a comment that I got. And remember, we were on a radio show, and I was talking about the Yahweh virus, and the guy was like, well, I'm infected with the Yahweh virus, and I like it. I like it.
I like the way it makes me feel.
And I'm like, the pizza gators also like to do what they do with children.
Right. Does that make it
That's
natural?
what the virus
right?
does.
Yeah, the virus.
The virus makes the host feel good
Yeah.
about feeding it.
Right.
Now, the pizza situation is the extreme. But how many gas station attendants have you ran into that are like, mask, 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 mask,
Power
mask?
trip.
The little bitty power trips, you know, all that. The wanting to assert some kind of control over another person. And that's how the virus feeds as well. So, we're talking about the ethereal virus in the Matrix now, not the 3D virus, but it seems like the virus had to be brought up to the surface. It was, are you okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can wrap it up.
No, you're fine. Shouldn't you be free to sin but then not do it? Now that is virtuous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This has been my big problem with religion. Is, and no offense to any religious people out there, you know, last thing I want to do is offend people, but I feel that I need to speak my heart and I need to speak my truth. And those people who are truly part of the tribe, and those people who truly have their hearts in the right place, totally understand where I'm coming from, even though it may sound offensive on the surface. But my biggest problem with religion is that it takes away self-responsibility and self-growth. And let me explain why. Because if you say that the devil is making you do all these horrible things, the devil is putting all these thoughts into your head. And how many times have you heard Christians say, sometimes you see it on social media, not today, Satan, you know, all that. Externalizing what's inside of yourself and your own darkness now creates a situation to where it's external to you. So there's no reason to deal with it. There's no reason to change it. There's no reason to make it better. It's like if you had a house and you had algae in the house and you kept blaming the rain for the algae in the house or the mold in the house. And you're saying, well, you know, it's the fucking rain that the reason I have algae in the house. You need to address the algae in the house, not externalize it and say, well, it's a result of the rain. You need to deal with the algae or the mold that's inside of your fucking house. But it allows people to externalize it, and so they never actually deal with it. Likewise, the opposite. You say, Jesus is taking away all your sins. So, oh, please forgive me, etc., etc. I'm just a wretch. I'm just a sinner. I'm just all that. And Amazing Grace, just a little side note. You know that was written by a slave owner. It was written by a slaver. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Because he was a wretch.
Because he was a wretch. Because he was a fucking slaver.
Yeah.
So, externalizing it and putting it onto a figure like Jesus or anything else like that, or even, you know, pushing it off on the world or anything like that, you never actually go in and you don't actually change yourself. So you always hear Christians saying, repent, repent for the end is near, repent for the end is near. And I've always held the position that to repent, you can't consciously repent, because repenting means having a genuine change of heart or a genuine change of soul. And in order to do that, you have to have it inside of you, deal with it inside of you, and overcome it in one way or another. Whether it is have sympathy, empathy, empathize with whatever happened. If you go out and smack somebody, for example, and then you think about, oh man, well, you know, what if I smack, you know, what if somebody smacked me? How would I feel about that? You know, that's how you repent, and you don't do it again because you've learned. Or repenting sometimes is done by karma, where you go out and you do something to somebody and then it happens to you and you're like, oh shit, I don't like the way that feels. So now I have it in my mind about how it makes somebody else feel. That's how you repent. But this whole idea of repent now and proclaim your sorrow and apologize for everything, it's all fake, especially when it's done under the threat of hell, or it's done under the threat of some kind of punishment or repercussion, or, you know, something like that. And so that's been my biggest problem with religion. How did I even get on that subject, though? I had you know, somewhere where I was going with that. But I guess my point is, I guess to tie it all in together, is that 2020's really brought out, oh yeah, the gas station people. 2020's brought out what has been inside of everybody the whole time. And it's just like ayahuasca. Ayahuasca doesn't change you. Ayahuasca brings out what's inside of you. And if there's darkness inside of you, ayahuasca will bring out that darkness. If there's light inside of you, ayahuasca will bring out that light. Ayahuasca will bring out your traumas. Ayahuasca will bring out the best parts of you. And it's up to you on what you want to do with all of that. All it does is just show you what's there. And then it's your job to do the work. It's your job to go through the process of divesting yourself from this virus. But when this virus is infected in the minds of people walking around wanting to control everybody, then you get this whole mask. Then it becomes virtuous to attack those who are living free of the virus control. So we've gotten to that point. But I guess let me just say this before I wrap it up. When we reset the matrix in May of 2018, the virus had to come to the surface. It had to. Because if it was festering any longer, we'd have no chance whatsoever. It needed to come up sooner than later. And we brought it to the surface. And we forced it out of its fucking burrow, out on the surface, for everybody to fucking see. Now the responsibility falls on each individual out there to divest themselves of that virus mentality. The virus mentality of wanting to control others. The virus mentality of everything that's going on right now. And so everything is in everybody's face right now. No pun intended with these fucking things here. It's literally in your fucking face. And it's up to each individual on what they want to do. So I think what we did is we created a situation to where people are forced to deal with their shit. And unfortunately, the weighing of the heart ceremony that's taking place right now on a matrix-wide level is not looking very good. But it wasn't, it's not something that we're responsible for. All we did is create the circumstances for the virus to come up to the surface and people to be aware of the virus, have terms like the Great Reset be out there, have terms like the virus be out there, have terms like NPCs be out there. You know, all of that. Everything is exposed. The apocalypse is here. The veils have been dropped. Everybody can see everything for what it is. Now it's just a matter of who are you? Who am I? Who are they? And they seem to be really fucked. But it's funny because we were talking about quarantine in 2018 and 2019. We said when we bring this virus up to the surface, we're going to be quarantining this virus in a space. I keep referencing this show, What is the Aten, A-T-E-N, that's on our YouTube channel. Go watch that. It's a great, great, great show. It talks about everything that's going on right now, but it's talking about it on an ethereal, energetic level. I had no idea it was going to manifest physically. But I said the virus is going to be quarantined, and I watched the end of the Matrix. I watched the Matrix shutting down. I watched exactly what happens. And we have multiple timelines. Those timelines are being eliminated one at a time. As they're being eliminated, we are moving from one timeline where our former timeline was destroyed. Consciousness that could be saved and not annihilated is moved into another time space, 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 while the virus is being quarantined to one singular time space. The reason that we have to be here right now, though, this is more Patreon content, but the reason that we have to be here right now, even though it sucks and it's a fucking infected fucking cesspool, is because there has to be an element of antivirus. There has to be an element of balance. There has to be those who are pushing the virus into the surface and quarantining it in the place where it's supposed to be. And it all manifested physically, which still to this day blows my fucking mind. On a 3D level, I'm sitting back and going, holy fucking shit. I mean, it's gotten so real that it's... When we came back from Egypt, I was thinking, maybe it was just one big ayahuasca trip, and that's it. Then I was thinking, well, maybe it's just energy work. But no, this shit really reset the fucking Matrix. So I know that it sucks being here right now. I know that it sucks. But I think in December of 2021, we shifted into a tangent universe because we needed to. Because this is where the virus is being quarantined. We're going to shift out of this tangent into the final phase of exiting the Matrix. And we've left a lot of the virus in the old Matrix, which has been destroyed now. Consciousness that can be saved is moved here. Another deprogramming, de-virus removal or virus removal process here, moving into another tangent, and then I think we're gone. And I think after that, we wake up, and whatever's left is left. And whatever's left at that point is completely and totally annihilated. Like, what we're trying to do is preserve as much system data as we can. So it's like if your computer's infected with a virus and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to try to save as many files as I can. I'm going to try to save as much data as I can. But there's so much data that's corrupt, you have to start moving files into a quarantine area. And then we're going to find ourselves going, okay, we have saved as much data as we possibly can. Now it's time for complete and total shutdown. So I know it sucks right now. I know it sucks. But there's still more that we have to do to see this process through. So thank you for being with us while we see this process through. And there's another site, I'm thinking spring of 2022. And that will be, in my opinion, the one that really initiates the complete shutdown process and separates the non-virus infected consciousness from the virus infected consciousness. But on a 3D level, I really wanted to see it go down the Trump 2021 timeline. It would have gone to the same place. I mean, I have no illusion of that. It would have wound up in the same place. It would have just been so much easier for us and for everybody else to navigate through. But instead, they chose the rougher path, which is having to contend with all of this. So, anything, Mrs. Gio?
There's just lots of love in the chat room. It does suck, but hope you all are healthy and happy. Is just what everybody's saying. That we just got to get through this last part of it. I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. You know, I understand the new age, cleanse yourself, meditate, do all that. And there was a time for that. And we did all that. Now's the time to enjoy yourself and do whatever the fuck you want. Enjoy it because it's shutting down. And we have to create that positive energy within our own spheres to offset the negative energies that are out there. We have to be the balance that's out there. And it's important on an individual level to enjoy yourself, enjoy your life, and love yourself. Love yourself. That's what the New Age never said love yourself. New Age always said blind love to everything. Ignore the darkness, ignore all of that. Same with religion. Religion, blind love, ignore the darkness. And a lot of religious people do. They read the Bible, read the most horrible atrocities, misogyny, pedophilia, rape, wars, pillage, all that. They ignore all that. And they only focus on the loving parts of it. Are you okay, sweetie?
Yeah.
Are you
I'm
hurting?
just thinking about what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
It's sad.
Okay. I can tell you're hurting.
I'm listening.
All right. So anyways, love yourself and love each other. But love each other, that's easy. Loving yourself, that's the hard part.
Yep. It always is.
So, kiss the one you love right now. You never know when the last time it's going to be. Thank you to everybody that sent the super chat. Thank you to everybody that hung out. I had no idea this was going to go on for this long, but we're almost there. We're almost there. Mission has been fucking accomplished. Now we just gotta wait for evac. Kiss the one you love right now because you never know the last time it's gonna be. I'm gonna go try to take care of Mrs. Gio.
Aww.
So, love ya and see you even further beyond the veil.